Morning, guys. It is bright and early, or dark and early out here right now. I have a bit of a different video for you this morning because I have a bit of a different job. This is probably the biggest commission job I've done, and I am going to be using my Gunflint CNC really, really hard for this. So if you take a quick look, this is what I'm making, just a small little pocket in a 10 by 18 inch piece of walnut. There's actually two pockets, a bigger one and a littler one. But I need this to go as fast as possible because I have a quick deadline and I have to make 200 of these. So I've been stacking them all over the place. I've got more coming. I have more material. I'm making 200 of these and I need to do it quickly. So I'm going to push the Gunflint as fast as I can. And to do it, to cut everything, because I have such a tiny corner profile, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch bit. And this is actually a Cadence Manufacturing Jenny bit. And the reason they call it the Jenny is there's the part number right there. If you're old enough, you get that reference. Anyway, the point of this video, I think, rather than trying to show you how I'm going to do all of this, and because I'm just too busy to show you my entire process of turning that into that, I think we're going to test these bits a little bit. So this is a brand new Jenny bit. I have never run anything on this one before. I did a couple of tests to make sure everything was working right with my older Jenny bit, and there is nothing wrong with this one whatsoever. It's just I decided to start from scratch. So I have my older one, I have a new one in a container, and I have a new one in the machine. So between the three, I should be able to do this very well. But I'm curious, if I'm pushing this at the ragged edge of what the machine can handle, what the bit can handle, how clean is the outcome going to be when it's all done? Because if you look at this, there are no burrs on the edges. There is very, very little tool marks. I can't feel that. You can see it right there when the bit is actually going across the end grain and turning to go different directions. You can see it, but you can't actually feel it. So it is leaving an amazing finish. Now, I'm wondering, after I've pushed it through 200 of these boards as fast as I can, how good that finish is going to be. So I'm not sure. We'll start some footage on this first one, and then we'll turn the camera off, and then you'll just have to trust me that I am going through all of this stuff and more, and then we'll check back in if there's a failure, if it's starting to lose quality, or if we get to the end and it's still just fine. This will be interesting. So before I get started, I used the touch plate to touch off the corner so I know exactly where the corner is. I'm not trying to eyeball it, especially since it's a rounded corner. I'm not trying to find the center. This is the corner the machine said so, and it's also told me what the height is. So that's really handy to be able to just set this guy up like that. You take the bit and you hover over the circle there in the corner, and then you hit XYZ probe on the machine. XYZ probe, and then it goes and zeroes off of that. Awesome, good to go. So now I need to put the dust collection on because this will make a ton of dust by the time I'm done, and then we can fire it up. All right, so now I have my dust boot or shoe or some kind of footwear, my dust stiletto. It is set up. You can tell I've done some repair work because I've crashed my bit into it before. Long story, you don't need to know about that. But it seals up pretty well now with this aluminum tape. I have my spindle set to about 3.5, which should be in the neighborhood of 20,000. So we can fire that up. The dust line goes back to a dust deputy and into a shop vac, and now it's really loud. And now we can hit go. So, you probably can't even hear me right now because I got all the noises going. But if you can hear this narration, it's going about 200 lines per inch, full depth plunge of 1/8 of an inch, and it's really ripping, but it does feel like it could actually take more. To get through this, the whole thing is going to take about 33 hours. It's about 9 minutes per carve. And I might set it up to do a second one simultaneously, so it'll do one and then another one, so that I don't have to constantly come back and refeed the machine every 9 minutes. But anyway, I'm tired of yelling over the noises. We'll check back in eventually. Good morning, guys. It's time for a bit of an update. I've been running this for about 10 hours at this point. It's been more than 10 hours. I've got 75 done, ready to go. If I was thinking harder, I would be able to come up with an actual amount of time, but I'm not going to think any harder. It's going great. The thing has actually been running so smooth, I've ramped up the speed a little bit. I have it down to 8 minutes per carve. This right here is the finish coming off of the CNC, so most of it is good enough. In the corners, you can just see it. I can barely feel that. There's some fuzz from the tooth, from the bit, but really, even those straight line ridges here, you can't feel those. You can't feel those. So it just takes a little bit of detail sanding, and then this thing is all good. And there's no like burrs, there's no fray coming off on the edges either. So this is, I would say, 99% good just coming off of the machine. This is, I'll show you a sanded one. So once you get down here, you really can't see any of that V. The reason for that is the bit will start here and plunge in and do a full depth cut, and then it starts to go out, and then at the corners it pauses and gets a little bit bigger as it makes each path. So the reason for the V is just the tool path, but that's easy enough to sand out and we're good to go. So I have this stack of fresh boards that I'm working on over there. Those will have to get the corners rounded. All of this is ready to go in the CNC machine. And yeah, anyway, the Jenny bit and the Onefinity are really kicking butt so far. If 75 are done, that means I got about 125 left to go. So we're looking at just about 20 hours at 8 minutes per carve. It's going to be a long couple of days, but it's going well. Anyway, we'll check in again eventually. So we're going to touch this off. We've got that shoulder goes up against the front corner. We've got the bit over the circle. And then we're going to do an XYZ probe. This has to make contact. Then it goes, yep, everything's working. Hit continue, tell it what size bit, and then it'll start to touch off. I thought real quick while this is doing that, I wanted to mention this is the hardest I've ever pushed this machine. And really because I just didn't know where to start before, so I was always thinking, well, let's go safe, let's go slow. That's not necessarily the right move. With as hard as I've pushed this, I've been constantly checking, and this thing isn't heating up. I would expect that spindle to be getting hot based on my previous experiences of running it slower, and honestly, that's not the right move. It's been going for many, many, many hours, and it is not hot at all. Right now it's not hot, but it's early. I'm thinking. It's been running for many, many, many hours in the last few days, and then I'll come over here and touch off on some of these parts, and it's not hot at all. I mean, it's warm, but it's not, ow, my fingers hurt, hot, which in the past I've kind of had to stop and let it rest for a while and cool down because I wasn't running it right. So between the speed of the spindle and the speed of the gantry moving around, it's making a certain chip load, and it is being very efficient with that chip load right now to the point that the spindle isn't heating up. So this is very interesting that I thought I was going to be on the ragged edge of things pushing it hard like this, and I think it's actually running better pushing it hard like this. All right, so now it's time to put my dust collection boot back on. I actually put the longer bristles on since I started because it wasn't doing a great job of sucking down inside the pocket once it was created, but with these longer, slightly more flexible bristles, I'm getting better dust collection towards the end of this. You can see I've had to repair this a little bit. There is a piece of polycarbonate in there that, or acrylic, or I don't know, plastics, that I have broken a couple of times doing this or that or whatever incorrectly. Most of that was a result of having this thing up on the wall. But Anyway, let's see if I can put this on one-handed. Otherwise, I'm going to stop holding you and blathering. And, hey, that might work. Come on, get down there. Get down there. You know you want to. We had it. We had it. One-handed is just not easy. Too high, too low. There. Now we're in. Now I give it just a little bit of a push down so that it's deflecting the bristles just a little bit. If I do it too much, then there's too much drag and these feet move real badly every time this thing switches directions and it feels like it's going to snap something off. But just a little bit of deflection helps it get down into that pocket. Then you can seal it off, and that's all there is to that. So, shop vac, spindle set almost to 4, and tray 8 start. Except the shop vac isn't hooked up in the back. That makes a difference. Now we're good to go. Morning, guys. Time to check in again real quick. That is 120 all done, ready to go. There's three more that I need to sand. So 123 off the CNC machine so far without changing bits and with pushing it pretty hard. This is the last one that came off. I just wanted to show you, there's just a little bit of fuzzing as it goes across that end grain, and there's a little bit that's stuck to these edges here, but that so far I would not claim that is the bit getting dull. I've seen that a few times. There must be just something a little bit different about the grain on this particular piece. It'll sand off really fast. I'm gonna guess the next one that comes off the machine is gonna go back to looking just the way they always did, where you can kind of see it. This one came off before that one. So I don't think that bit's having any trouble with this yet. I think that was just some funny grain in that one. Anyway, starting another morning a little bit late today because of dog issues. If you listen to the podcast, you know about the dog issues. If you don't listen to the podcasts, you should. It's We Built a Thing. Just look for that. You'll find it if you do podcasts. Anyway, I'm running out of days, so I'm going to get to this. We'll check in again if there's any other updates. All right, guys, last morning of carving these things. There's 120 in those 2 bottom boxes. This is all just scrap. This will be kindling for the fireplace. 30, 80, that's about all I can lift and move around. And I can't lift that on my own. I'm going to put it in the truck with the tractor, but it'll keep it kind of bundled together when it's traveling down the road. So then there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. These are sanded. Those aren't sanded. I got about 20 left to hit my 200 and about 5 more for some safety. The same bit is still going strong. It's still coming out great. The one thing I'm going to point out is if you look real close. Come on, let's see if we can get some focus. No? We're not going to focus? There. Look at the end of the bit. Just a tiny, tiny little buildup of sugars and stuff from this. So all I've got to do is clean that off, and that'll probably help make a little bit cleaner of a cut. But if that's the worst that happens, and 180, let me zoom out, 180 of these so far, and still, this is the finish coming off of the machine. Still nothing. There's a tiny little fuzz there. This backside has a little bit, but really when I sand it, it's gone that fast. So I'm really impressed. This bit is really holding up. But I got to get back to work, so we'll maybe talk again when this is all over. That is officially the last one. This has been a long project and we are now done. The Onefinity ran fantastically. Really happy with how hard I could push that and how fast it was able to crank this out. Even though, I mean, 200 of them takes a very, very long time regardless of how fast you can push the machine. The Jenny bit, that did a fantastic job also. Again, if you look in here, this being the last one, let's blow the dust out. Take a look. I can't feel those tool marks, but you can see them a little bit. Same thing over here. I can feel that just barely. And I don't know what it is about this back pocket, but the initial plunge and cut is always leaving this slightly deeper cut. I can't explain that one. But that sands out easy enough. So then what we have here is our Jenny bit. Let me zoom in a little bit, see if that'll work. So after, well, let me do the math on this in just a second. So there's just a little bit of buildup back on that again, but man, it still feels sharp. It's still kind of like as good as new. It's certainly leaving as good a finish as it did at the start. There are 120 in those boxes ready to go. There's another 80 here and then 5 for safety. So in case something goes wrong or something in here that might not be quite perfect that I maybe missed. But we are all done and the equipment worked fantastically. I'm really excited about how well that actually went. If you need a Onefinity, go look for Onefinity. If you need a bit that really works fantastically, my buddy Cody over at Cadence Manufacturing makes them himself and sells those, and I believe that they actually sell those on the Onefinity website too. But a little bit different video, obviously. I was in a rush. I've been in a rush for the last few months. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I don't know what else to say, so bye. See ya. Au revoir.